Hello, this is Des, and you are listening to the Wellness Project powered by Spotlight Coalition, and this is episode number 83. On today's episode, I speak with Rina Lang. Rina comes on to talk with me about something she struggled with for a long time, which was brain fog and mental fatigue. Now, Rina gets into what these are, the signs, the symptoms, but also how to overcome these and how to heal, and the things that she put into practice to heal her mind and her brain. Now, I am so glad that Rina came on to talk with me today because this is something that I felt like I might be struggling with, but I wasn't exactly sure. I knew something was going on with my brain. I've just been so much more forgetful, so clumsy. I just feel like in this constant, just as Rena explains it in the episode, like your brain is in a fishbowl. That's just how I've been feeling, but I didn't know what it was exactly. I kind of suspected brain fog and mental fatigue, but after speaking with Rena, it became so clear. This is what I've been struggling with. I've just felt very off. I don't know if it's been months or a year, but I felt so off and just really having a hard time, honestly, that I even started taking ginkgo biloba because that is supposedly a good supplement for your brain. So I've been taking that the last few months because just I feel like I'm struggling. So if you're struggling like I am, and I think a lot of people are struggling with brain fog and mental fatigue right now, if you're somebody that is experiencing these things, then definitely listen to this episode because Rena gets into a lot of great advice and tips. She really clarifies what brain fog and mental fatigue are. And just so you know, mental fatigue is also known as brain fatigue or mind fatigue. So you could kind of use those interchangeably. So, if you are somebody that feels like your brain is in a fishbowl, then you are going to want to tune into this episode. Let's hear from Rena. All right, everyone. I am here with Rena Lang. Rena, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me here, Desiree. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to speaking with you today. So, as just a little introduction, can you let us know who you are, what you've struggled with, and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I'm Rina Lang, and I am mind and brain power coach. So I help basically anybody who's a thought leader, professional, business owner, whoever they are, specifically rely on their minds and how they monetize the gifts and skills. These are the people that I have. How did I come about having this type of niche and just focusing on minds and brains? I used to be such an achiever. So I was working as a consultant, living in Asia, got landed my dream job and such. And then I realized that something was happening to my mind. My mind was not performing at the level that I was used to. I would go into client meetings and I would forget completely what was discussed. I had to go and secretly record conversations because my memory is just so bad. I used to procrastinate. I needed 1 hour of drinking coffee before I was ready to even open my very first email. And I was only in my early 30s. So I assume it was just a side effect of me literally burning myself out way too many times. And eventually my mind, my brain gave me the bill for it. And so being so young, I just knew I could not settle for this. There has to be a solution. And that's what my journey has become in the last 5, 6 years. It's been all about discovering ways to heal my mind and brain naturally.
I know that you talk a lot about brain fatigue and brain fog and things like that. So, can you let people know what is actually brain fog and mind fatigue?
Sure. Brain fog is like having your head stuck in a fishbowl. It's literally like that. You constantly feel like people are talking to you, you don't really quite grasp what they're saying, meaning evades you, being completely tired all the time and feeling like even simple things is just such a chore to do. And you cannot focus, your mind is scattered, and you just constantly feel tired. So mind fatigue is slightly different. Mind fatigue is not a condition. Like brain fog is something that you would probably have for weeks and months and even years. Like that, just you just constantly feel like you have like something stuffed in your ears, and you can just not hear people properly, and you cannot really grasp the information that's coming your way. Mind fatigue or mental fatigue is actually when those of us who are such mental people, and we read a lot and we think a lot and we constantly are using and exercising our mental muscles. After a while, just like the physical body, the mental body, we do have a mental body, it's a mental energy field. And it also gets tired, it needs rest. So usually you might remember the times when we were studying a lot at school or university, and you just binge study, like because there are exams coming up. And you just from the morning until the evening, you just study. That's something that's mental fatigue. You really need to take those 20-minute breaks now and then to recharge. However, many who end up in corporate jobs, who are achievers, who work 12, 14 hours a day, they literally just exercising that mental body, that mental muscle all the time. And then on top, they cannot wind down. They cannot sleep and recharge and regenerate and rejuvenate the brain. Then, of course, on the next day, it just continues. And if day after day, week after week, month after month, you do this, then guess what? Eventually, also, you will get a bill for that eventually too. The mind needs rest just like the physical body.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for explaining that, because I think a lot of people struggle with brain fog and mind fatigue and don't realize it. So, at what point did you realize that these were the things that you were struggling with?
So first off, literally forgetting everything and anything. I had to write down and keep to-do lists for everything and anything, because little things, everything was evading me. I was realizing that I was going to, let's say, client meetings or just interacting with my colleagues in projects, and they could remember things from last week, from like 5 weeks ago, and I couldn't remember what happened 5 minutes ago. And one of the things that I was forced to do at work is actually writing meeting minutes. And that's when I really realized that I would type something up and then give it to my supervisor for review. And she's like, no, that's not what was discussed. No, that's not it. That's not it. This is what we agreed on. That's what was the final decision. And that's when I started realizing that it seems to me as if we had gone to completely two different meetings. And of course, she was right and I wasn't. Another thing was I was procrastinating a lot. Like I was saying, I had to drink 1 hour coffee before I was ready to open my email. Later on, only like two years ago, I realized that actually procrastination is a big side effect of burnout. Many people don't realize that if you had a couple of burnouts in your life, eventually procrastination is actually self-preservation. And many people beat themselves up. I was beating myself up for years because I was procrastinating, but actually it was self-preservation so that I don't get burned out again. So every time it was too much, something was getting too much for my system, I'll just like drop everything and not do it. So these were the two key things, like not remembering the facts, making mistakes, of course, all the time, or reporting back certain information. And when people would just look at me, that's not what this was discussed. This is not how we saw it, right? And it made me, of course, look pretty stupid. And I actually felt dumb for a couple of years because while I actually was on that job for 2 years, comparing myself to my colleagues, I was like, this is not me. Something is clearly different now than how I used to be. Once I left my job, I knew before I was gonna start doing any other job, I had to take 1 year break and heal my mind. So I took a year off and just traveled a lot around the world and put myself first.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing this. I think this is such an important conversation because, like I said, I think so many people are struggling with this, and maybe they think it's just normal and maybe just a part of getting older. Maybe they don't realize what it's stemming from. So, you think this is something that can be helped and can be cured in a way?
Definitely. This is one of the myths I've set out to debunk. We just assume that, while we're children, our intelligence is just growing. Then sometimes at some point in 20s, 30s, it plateaus. And then 40s, 50s, it starts kind of like deteriorating. And we just accept it. It's kind of like, well, my mother is a bit more forgetful than she used to be. Or my father is more forgetful. It's kind of like such an accepted belief that this is just the way things are. Because this happened to me in my early 30s, that was quite a slap. I knew I had to wake up because it happened to me sooner than I would have ever expected this to happen to me. I tried different things. So there are the superfoods that you can eat for the brain, and different exercises and mind games and memory and speed reading and all that. But I realized there was something more happening to me, specifically energetically. And this is the route that I went to heal my brain. And over the years, I've collected so many tools, techniques, insights that help me understand how mind really works, what mind is, how does it interact with the brain, how can we unleash and unlock our intelligence. Because one book I always talk about and I highly recommend people read is called Stealing Fire. And it just shows you how the smartest people on this planet, they're doing mind hacking left and right. They do anything and everything possible to put themselves in such altered states where higher levels of intelligence, intuition, intellect, instinct can be accessed and used. The most smartest people on this planet, I love reading biographies. I'm always fascinated how often they attribute their insights, their breakthroughs, they attribute it through their ability to access some outwardly information. And I think we all have that ability. There are just few things we need to do to get out of the way first. The smartest person on the planet, we can be that too. I don't subscribe and I don't believe in this. The world is just unfair, and this is the way it is. There are some people who are born geniuses from the get-go. They can do things nobody else can do, and we were dealt not such a good card in our lives, and we are not as smart, and this is just the way it is, and whatever, right? I don't believe in that. Especially that's what I've seen with my mind for the last 5-6 years, is how I'm smarter than I've ever was. And it's such a pleasure being in my own mind now. I'm always fascinated what's the next thing that my mind is going to produce or make or do that in the past was such a difficult thing for me to do. I'm just fascinated, and I think a lot more people can get there no matter their age. I don't like shoes, but nobody should settle down for what they have, and nobody definitely should settle down that for the normal flow of things such as the mind deteriorating.
Oh, this is really great. So, can you deep dive a little bit into some of the things that you've mentioned that can help somebody overcome with these things? Like, I know you mentioned like superfoods and things like that. Can you give people some ideas or tips on things that will help them?
Yeah, sure. But the route that I advocate, because I've tried the superfoods, right? And I didn't, yeah, there was some improvement, but it's not like I was waking up a genius on the next day, or physical exercises and such. Usually, what people lack is will to persist, to learn to speed read, to persist to do those memory games. And guess what? The smartest people on this planet also get dementia and Alzheimer. So there is more to that. So just thinking all the time and using your memory is not the only solution, right? So the route that I recommend, and this is what I coach around, is first clean up your mind, declutter your mind. Like one exercise, if you don't mind, I can guide you quickly, that anybody and everybody can start doing is just close your eyes and check in with your own energy body and see what sort of emotions and feelings and thoughts are coming up. If there is worry and stress, check in with that energy and put a percentage on it. How much of that energy is actually yours? All of us, we are just walking sponges. We're absorbing energies left and right from places, from other people. A lot of the energy that we carry in our energy body, it's not even ours. Whenever you feel like you're overwhelmed with the amount of emotions or with the problem that you're having, you're completely stressed out of your mind, sit down, close your eyes, check in. Is it even yours? And the surprising thing would be many people say 80% is not mine, 95% is not mine, 99% is not mine. The next thing that you can do is generate the feeling of free fall in your body. Just imagine, like back then when we were kids, we're playing around, you jump and you know you're going to get caught. So generate that feeling of complete like release, like letting go. Just I'm falling and I'm letting myself go. That feeling allows you to let go of all that energy that you've been holding on to, even though it's not yours. And just have that intention, focus on the energy field and have that intention that that grayish energy is going to leave your body now. It float out of your energy field, out of the window, out into the universe, send it back to whoever this belongs to. This exercise, it's such a simple exercise. If you do that every night before sleep, I guarantee you, you will be waking up much, much better. because whatever energy is left that is authentically yours, you can deal with. It's never more than we can handle. So try this exercise. But of course, there are much more tools that I teach in my programs and in my coaching. But basically, this is one of the things. These days, there are so many energy healing schools. There are so many ways you can start looking at your energy body and really releasing and freeing up your mind. 4 years ago, I ended up in a Vipassana retreat. Those of you who don't know what Vipassana is, it's a 10-day silent retreat. You're not allowed to look anyone in the eyes. You're not allowed to talk to anyone. You just sit, meditate like 10 hours a day, and that's it. That's when I realized how boring my mind actually was. It kept obsessing. I was saying 100 things over and over and over again. Mostly it's just like some unresolved conflicts from the past, some injustices. I should have said this, I should have said that, but it's nothing that is in any way relevant to my life now. But it's still fighting for my attention. Also, I'm worried about the future. Oh my God, next year, this year. Like, what's the point? The only thing that exists is actually now. There is no past future, right? And so this is the number one step, looking at your energy field and removing everything and anything that doesn't serve you. Imagine our minds, it's like a room full of clothes, piles and piles of clothes just all thrown around. And it's hard to find anything in that mess. Well, that's how our minds are. If you talk to people or read biographies, I was watching this documentary the other day about people who have excellent photographic memories. Of course, there are certain parts of the brain that are slightly bigger than an average person's, but at the same time, they're extremely, extremely organized people. So that's step 2, organize your mind. Because if your room is messy, if your desk is messy, if your bag and everything is messy, guess what? This is a reflection of your mind. So step 2 is how to organize your mind. One of the things that I highly recommend, I've been doing it for the last 2 years, and I'm such a big fan of it. I read the book, The Artist's Way. And in that book is recommended that you start writing your morning pages. And I've been writing my morning pages almost for 2 years. And it's recommended that you write 3 pages a day. Well, sometimes I write 5, sometimes I write half a page. But basically, it's not like a diary. It's not like I did this, I did that. No, it's checking in with your inner world and see, okay, today I'm mad because the sun is round. Okay, what exactly is the issue there? Start writing it out, and you start uncovering the true feelings, thoughts, beliefs behind it. The issue is very, very few people actually truly think. They think, but it's not. It's just an emotion with some thought smeared on top of it. None of it is unique, groundbreaking, intuitive, interesting insights, that are going to change the world. Because those for me are real thoughts. But most of us is just like, if you listen to people talk, it's just some sort of an emotion that they want to rant about or share, and then they wrap it up in words. And they think, but actually it's not thinking. Very few people on this planet truly, truly think and bring in groundbreaking ideas. Guess what? No groundbreaking thinking can happen in a mind that has all those elephants, swimming in our pond that all shout for our attention. We don't even understand what exactly they want to tell us. I want you to think here at this point, listeners, and also you, Desiree, that thoughts or those emotions that are the bad guys. They're not the bad guys. They're just showing you that something happened to you in your timeline where your boundaries were transpassed. Somehow you were hurt. Something just happened that wasn't right, and you couldn't defend, protect yourself. It's just something that trespassed your boundaries. And that's what all those emotions try to tell you, is like something in your world was done to you that was not right. Well, why don't you just stop, face that emotion, and give it that airtime? And that's what those morning pages are actually meant to do. Give that elephant, fish, whatever you want to call it, it's time to just tell you its story. You're angry because the sun is round. Why? Because right? And that will help you. Literally, it's like taking one piece of cloth from that pile of clothes, look at it, really look at it, and then put it on its rightful place on a shelf, or completely get rid of it if it's no longer useful to you, right? And you will realize, like after 2 years, I just realized, wow, my mind actually is a clean place. Guess what? Remembering in a clean place, it is much, much easier. Many people who face accidents, something happens to them, something traumatic, then suddenly they can remember things, from the time their mother was pregnant with them. It just goes to show that everything that happened to us is stored somewhere in our consciousness. It's just because we don't need it in our life right now, we are not accessing it on a day-to-day basis, it has no relevance. The mind, so that the brain doesn't get overwhelmed, all that gets stored somewhere else and we can no longer access it, but it's all there. And it's easier to access the wealth of information, the wealth of wisdom that we've gathered throughout our life. It's much easier to access that information from a much, much cleaner and organized space. So these are the two things that I recommend you start first. And then, of course, the third thing would be energize your brain. Our brains get depleted as well. For instance, if you talk in chakra lingo languages, for instance, we have all those chakras that supposedly energizing our body and keep it alive. So there are chakras around the brain too. And I've worked on people that had dementia and Alzheimer before. And the interesting thing is that the chakras around the head are much, much smaller than on the rest of the body. What does that mean? It means smaller chakras, the brain is not being energized enough. One thing that I highly recommend to people is that start pacing. Every time you're attending some webinar or watching some replay, why sitting on your chair glued to the screen? Why not start pacing around? Movement generates energy in your body. More energy is going to come to your brain. That will help break down that brain fatigue, brain fog, and such as well, because your mind will be much better energized. You will see that your ability to capture information, recall information will be tremendously improved. So give it a try.
Oh, great. Rina, that was all really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of those tips. I think they're going to be so, so helpful for people. So, when you got started on your journey, when you realized that you needed help with your mind, with this brain fog and the procrastination, all the issues you were dealing with, what was the first step you took? How did you get started? And then, did you ever feel discouraged or hopeless on your journey because things weren't working, your mind wasn't improving?
I'm a problem solver. So to me, if there's a problem, I will find a solution, because I'm a big believer life is never going to give me anything that I cannot solve or handle somehow. First step for me, luckily, fortunately, I was in that position. I could actually leave my job and go and take that 1 year break. Take that 1 year break, travel. I went to Buddhist temples in Nepal and learned about the mind from Buddhists. I did a course in yoga teachers training in India, ate good food, and really pampered myself. Like, I think honestly, the healing of the mind begins with resting your mind and body. Take a long break. If you think traveling is expensive, think again, it's cheaper than you think. It's cheaper than living in the country in the West, of course, where you're living. But taking yourself that break and putting yourself first. I was reading nice books, I was doing yoga, I was meditating, I was eating good food, I was doing anything and everything to help my soul blossom. And I wasn't asking for big things in life. I wasn't asking for purpose in life. All I was asking of the universe is, can I please be happy? Can I just please be happy? Because I was not happy. I was miserable, and I needed to shake all that stress from living for almost 7 years in Singapore. I had to shake it off. I had to get it out of my system to find back to myself. And so that year really allowed me. I went to Brazil, to Cuba, to Mexico, all those places I've always dreamed of going. And I gave it to myself as a gift. I'm like, you worked hard, you've achieved a lot. And that's the thing, we just keep following those promises, get that degree, you're going to be happy, get that job, you're going to be happy, get that salary, you're going to be happy. I got it all. I was on top of the world. I got the best job, the best salary, the best everything I could imagine. My system, my soul, whatever it was, showed me this was not it. And I knew I needed to put myself first now, because I realized no chasing any outward things will ever give me what I really want. And I think most of us, all that we want is just be happy, right? That's what I did. I wanted to be happy. And now the only thing I ask of the universe is that I want to be free. Free mentally, emotionally, from any drama, trauma. I don't want anybody or anything have any power over how I feel. And I think that's what also I assume Buddhists try to achieve with their practices, with enlightenment, is achieve certain level of detachment where whatever happens to you, you can be an observer, but it's not going to rock your world in any way. There is that inner peace. Working from that place, I think just being in that place is already so mentally, emotionally, physically healing. Because I no longer stress about, yes, sometimes I get stressed, but it's nothing that keeps me, shaken and uneven for weeks and weeks to come. I usually check it off by the time I go off to bed.
Great. Rena, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Do you have any final words of wisdom or tips for our listeners today?
Brain breaks, brain heals. Mind breaks, mind heals. Do never, ever, ever give up on your mind. There are new things coming up. This is the next revolution that is happening. I would say the mental revolution. Very few people, as I mentioned, really truly think. So if you can start putting the development of your mind first, then there'll be great things that you can do. It's such a pity that so many people in their 60s, right when they have all that wisdom, all that experience, where they could finally contribute to the world in a way that would really make this world a better place, they can't do so because they're forgetting things, that they can no longer rely on their own ability of taking care of themselves. And I think it's going to get even worse as all that multitasking is coming in, and this overwhelm with technology and too much information. I mean, our generation is going to be affected even more. So which means the sooner you start taking care of your brain and mind health, the better. Make it a priority.
Absolutely. That's so true. Thank you so much. Rena, can you tell everyone where they can find you?
You can find my website, it's rinalang.com. And also you can find me on LinkedIn, Rina Lang. Reach out to me, email me, it's rinalang.coach@gmail.com. I'll be happy to connect with you. I also host a podcast around that on YouTube and in my Facebook group. So reach out to me and I'll be happy to add you.
Perfect. Rena, thank you so much. This has been so amazing. I think this was such a valuable conversation for everyone to hear because I know a lot of people are struggling with these things. So thank you so much. And everyone, all of the links to find Rena are going to be in the show notes. So definitely go check her out.
Thank you so much.
Rena, thank you so much for coming on today and speaking with me about brain fog and mental fatigue. As I said in the beginning, I felt like this was something that I was really struggling with, but I didn't know exactly what was going on with me. I just knew something was very off. So, this conversation really gave me a lot of clarity on what's going on with me and what I've been struggling with. So, I really hope that it gave you that clarity as well if you've been experiencing these things. And it's really funny that Rena brought up the artist's way and the morning pages. The Artist's Way, if you're a tried and true listener of my podcast, you'll know that a lot of my guests bring up this book. So I highly recommend it. I did start The Artist's Way in the morning pages last summer. I did it for a while. I honestly can't even remember because it was so long ago. It's coming up on a year now already. It's already almost May, but I actually really enjoyed writing the morning pages. I completely fell off, but it's been something that I've consistently wanted to get back into. And I think because I am struggling with that mental fatigue and that brain fog, that speaking with Rena, this is just the push I needed to get back into writing the morning pages because I'm somebody that really struggles with anxiety as well. And I felt like just in the morning, first thing, getting out all of my anxieties, all of my worries, all of these things that were preoccupying my mind was really helpful. And it did give me that clarity and did help me to declutter. So that's definitely something I recommend and something that I will definitely be getting back into for sure. I even had a designated notebook for my morning pages. So that is something that I'm really glad that Rena brought up and will hopefully inspire me to take the next step and get back into that. So again, Rena, thank you so much. Everyone go check her out. And if you are struggling with brain fog and mental fatigue, definitely implement these tips that Rena gave on this episode. I think that will be so valuable for you. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you have an amazing 2 weeks. There will not be an episode posted next week, so I will catch you in 2 weeks with another incredible guest. Talk to you then.